So I'm coming down from Cowes, so I'm going to take the 23, that's the National Cycle Route, which is the old railway, pre-beaching, and that's on the west side of the right bank of the Medina. So and then I'm going to head west to Carisbrooke, and then I'm going to head around the Chillerton Hills. Now specifically I'm going to be around Gatcombe and Chillerton. Now I've never been down here before, not properly, and not on the e-bike, so what I want to do primarily is explore whether you can take an e-bike through these, i.e. whether there's styles which bar you on an e-bike, or whether they're more bridleway types, and so I can get through gates. It's quite hazy to begin with, as you'll see some of the camera work, but it does dry off later. It's also quite high up here, it's 167 metres, so once you're at the top I'm going to take the drone up, so we'll have a good explore, have a good look around and see if we can see the sea from all the way around the island, which I'm hoping we can. I'm going to explore some old pits and some tumulus as well, but mostly it's just an exploration, and then I can come back and do further longer routes, much longer routes, once I know my way around here and all these different routes, and maybe even some camping, you never know. Right, let's go and have a look. So first of all, heading south down the Route 23, the old railway, down into Newport to Bargeman's Rest. This is the centre of Newport now. And now we're going to split off and head down Route 22. That's the National Cycle Route 22 heading west. Now part of it is actually along this little road here. However, then we soon get back onto another track. And as we head back onto Route 22, just coming up to the church now, Carisbrooke, well, shortly in a few hundred metres. Again, I've mentioned this before, this is a shared space, so you share it with other path users. Now we're just coming up to the ancient little ford. Now this is actually between the church, Carisbrooke Church, and the actual castle, so it's incredibly old, it's very old. Here's the ford here. Now it's not really used as a road so much as other than just access, so it just allows access. But it's such a pretty little place to stop and stay. It's nice to have a quick stop and a quick cup of tea here. The whole island only has a population of about 140,000. That said, in the season it can increase with tourism, up to 3 million visitors we have a year. Here's the old castle, which I've done a separate video on. Absolutely stunningly beautiful already. There's Chillerton in the background there. So we're going to head. Now there are such a myriad of different paths in different directions. I just like to explore, so I would just go in any direction I wanted. This is the second time I've gone to Chillerton, so I've explored it already, actually, to be fair, a little bit. So I kind of know where I want to get to and how I want to get there. Now, obviously there's been rain in the last couple of weeks, so the ford is always in flood there. However, the paths do get a little bit muddy as well as we go forward. Now I don't have the most rugged mountain bike ever. It's kind of a mixture between a road bike and a mountain bike. It's an e-bike. However, it's sufficiently easy enough on this terrain. Here we are in the final field towards Chillerton Hills, and surprisingly I've met very few other riders out today, even though it's the May Bank holiday. And it wasn't particularly difficult, the weather wasn't particularly bad, but it's fairly quiet. I was surprised just how quiet Chillerton is overall. Also the fact that there's so many different routes to take. Now climbing up the hill was a little bit of a steam. In fact, I had to get off and push a little bit, or a little bit of assist on the e-bike, and some of them were a bit thin to get through, but there were no stiles to get over. In fact, I took this route here, and it was fine. There was no lifting the bike up, it was all gates, or it was just open. And this is the corner part where we split off up towards the hill. Once I got to the top, I wasn't quite sure which direction to go in, so I just basically followed as many routes as I could. They were all completely passable, albeit a little bit wet, a little bit kind of rainy. I didn't want to spook the lambs too much, so I tried to keep the noise down, but I very quickly it's only a little drone I've got, so it's fairly quiet, so I threw that up quite quickly, just to see if there are any views across the English Channel, which you can just about see in the distance. And now I'm heading back. I wasn't too sure how much power my e-bike would give me, whether it would get me home fully, so I was going to stop somewhere that I know I could charge it, but I didn't need it in the end. Now coming down was pretty steep. That was pretty exciting stuff, actually. I found it quite an interesting ride back. I have thought about doing some hiking around the island. I used to do quite a lot of it up in the Lake District and Scotland and even in the Alps, but I just find that we don't really need to. I don't feel a need to, because I've got the bike, and most places you can get to on a bicycle or an e-bike, so I don't really see the point myself. However, I have met plenty of others who have. It's just about planning your route and make sure you can get back, especially if it's a circular direction. Public transport is excellent on the island because it's so touristy focused and because there's such a small area to cover. Anyway, here I am coming back down, and it was steep, as I mentioned before. It was really quite steep. Now, I've just recently had the bike service, so I felt quite confident that the brakes were pretty tight, but even so, they did get a bit warm towards the end, and it was a bit of a struggle. It felt like it kept going on for quite some time, this little route, but again, I didn't encounter any bikes coming up against it, so I could actually go quite quickly. Now I'm still further exploring. I'm kind of looking at the map and I'm thinking, I could go in any direction. And I was tempted to head further south, and maybe towards Bristol and maybe southwest. However, and there's also many pits to explore. These are the ancient pits from, I think it was the Neolithic period, for tin mines. Here we are again, fork in the road. I don't know which direction to go in. It's tempting to go, but it was getting towards tea time, so I was thinking, well, I'll come back another day. I'll live on the island. I can do plenty of other routes. Now I decided to take a slightly different route, so I headed towards Blackwater to get on that Route 23, which is the old Beeching Cut railway line that I can take up all the way. That was a much more direct route then. It meant I could head straight towards Cowes up through Newport without any hills to climb and without any particular road junctions. You'll see shortly there are road junctions, but there is a priority for the cycle route. Here you can actually see, though, you see the embankment and the stream on either side that feeds into as tributaries to the Medina estuary. You can see where the train used to pull on through. And finally we just suddenly emerge into Newport Centre. Again, as I mentioned there, we do have some priority anyway. And it's so easy, it's so quick. You're through Newport Town Centre before you know it. And then we can head straight back up the river on the west side, which is the Route 23 back to Cowes. All in, a lovely day out cycling. Now here's temptation, the Bargeman's Rest on the left hand side, but no, I'll head straight up the river. So long, Chillerton. See you next time.